Leonardo da Vinci died believing he had failed in life. Have you ever stopped to think about this, or did you know this information? Da Vinci, the man who painted the Mona Lisa, designed what is considered the precursor to helicopters 400 years before they existed, revolutionized human anatomy, and died feeling like a failure. Why? Because Leonardo had an insatiable hunger for more and more. More knowledge, more projects, more and more. However, Leonardo was most likely a misunderstood genius, just like many of you watching, because sometimes he didn't finish a project because he became so interested in something else that he couldn't focus anymore. Do you recognize that feeling? Maybe, just maybe. The problem was never Leonardo, and maybe the problem isn't you either. We live in a strange era. If you tell someone that they play piano, study astrophysics, and also do woodworking in their spare time, the first thing you'll hear is, "Wow, but you don't focus on anything, do you?" It's as if having multiple interests were a disease, as if you were broken simply for liking more than one subject. And you know what's worse? Nowadays, with the growth of social media and digital marketing, it seems that if we focus on something other than making money, we're committing a crime. When we say we're focused on a project that doesn't involve money, a project that only brings us personal satisfaction, the people around us say, "Why are you wasting your time on that? If you do X instead of Y, you'll earn much more." But here's an interesting fact. A study analyzed the greatest scientific geniuses of the last 150 years. Do you know what they discovered? Scientists who won the Nobel Prize were 22 times more likely to have serious artistic hobbies than ordinary scientists. Albert Einstein played the violin, Richard Feynman drew, Marie Curie was a pianist. Coincidence? Unlikely. There is a type of mind that modern society doesn't know how to handle. A mind that sees connections where others see separations. A mind that needs to explore, connect, and master multiple areas of knowledge to feel complete. In ancient Greece, these people would have been called polymaths, from the Greek polymaths, one who has learned much. And today, we call them disorganized, unfocused, anxious, dyslexic, and so on. But what if I told you that maybe the problem isn't the person, but the world we've built? Let's understand a little more about this in today's video. Chapter 1. What is a true polymath? Let's make one thing clear right away. Having multiple interests doesn't make you a polymath. I know. It hurts a little, but it's important. There's a huge difference between being curious and being a polymath. Curiosity is when you watch a video about black holes at 2 a.m. and find it fascinating. Polymathy is when you study quantum physics for 3 years until you understand the mathematics behind black holes, and then realize that this connects to philosophy of mind, and then you dive into neuroscience. Polymaths are not only interested in a variety of things, they dominate several things. Leonardo da Vinci wasn't just a guy who liked to paint and was curious about machines. He was one of the greatest painters in history, a brilliant engineer, and an anatomist who made discoveries that medicine would only confirm 300 years later. Benjamin Franklin wasn't just an interesting guy. He was an inventor, scientist, diplomat, writer, political philosopher, and basically helped found a country in his spare time. Do you see the difference? It's not about having 1,000 hobbies, it's about having multiple hobbies, master's degrees. And here's where it gets interesting, the psychology behind it. Chapter 2. The psychology of the polymath. So what happens in the brain of a polymath that is different? First, integrative thinking. Most people see the world in separate boxes, science here, art there, philosophy far away. But the brain of a polymath rejects these divisions. It sees patterns, connections, structures that cross disciplines. When Leonardo studied the flow of water in rivers, he realized that the same principles applied to the hair falling on the shoulders in his paintings. When Isaac Newton wasn't busy inventing calculus, he studied alchemy and theology. And for him, it was all part of the same puzzle about how the universe worked. Second, structural curiosity. It's not just wanting to know things. It's an almost physical need to understand how things work in depth. It's the kind of curiosity that doesn't accept superficial answers. that can't simply use a cell phone without understanding the principles of quantum computing that exist within it. Third, and perhaps most importantly, tolerance for cognitive chaos. Most people feel anxious when they lack a clear professional identity. What do you do? Is the most common question at any social event, and society expects a simple answer: lawyer, doctor, teacher. But polymaths live in a permanent gray area, and not only do they tolerate it, that's it. The ambiguity, the possibility of being several things at the same time, is where they breathe. Chapter 3. The conflict with the modern world. Now comes the hard part. For most of human history, being a polymath was normal. In ancient Greece, an educated person was expected to know philosophy, mathematics, music, and athletics. In the Renaissance, the idea of the universal man was the ideal, but then something changed. The Industrial Revolution arrived, and with it, specialization. Suddenly the world needed specialists, people who did one thing, and did it very well, repeatedly for 40 years. Factories didn't need connective thinkers. They needed efficiency. And the education system. It was designed for this. Choose your career at 17, go to college in a specific field, get a job in that field, retirement, the end. But polymaths don't work that way. And that's where the suffering begins. Let me give you some examples. Case 1. A woman in California in the 1990s had a PhD in molecular biology, but she was also a professional jazz musician. For years, she was seen as unserious by her fellow scientists because she wasted her time on music. Until her understanding of mathematical patterns in music helped her decode patterns in DNA sequences, she made a major discovery. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know how she came up with the idea. Case 2. A Brazilian programmer in the 2000s also studied psychology and philosophy. He was constantly criticized for not focusing on his career. Managers told him he should stop wasting time on that stuff. He ignored them. Years later, he created one of the most intuitive user interfaces on the market, precisely because he understood both code and human cognition. Do you see the pattern? The world punishes polymaths until they create something that no one else could have created. Chapter 4. The real difficulties. But let's be honest about the difficulties. Because it's not just society being annoying. Difficulty 1. The curse of unfinished projects. Leonardo da Vinci had notebooks with thousands of pages of ideas, drawings, and inventions. Most were never built. Why? Because when he was in the middle of designing an irrigation canal, his mind was already fascinated with the anatomy of a bird, trying to understand how flight worked. This isn't a lack of discipline. It's just that when you see connections all the time, being stuck on a single project is mentally suffocating. Difficulty 2. Imposter syndrome times 1,000. Imagine this. You're good in 5 different areas, but in each of those areas, there are experts who have dedicated their entire lives to just that. So you'll always feel like you're not good enough compared to the experts, even though your ability to connect those 5 areas creates something unique. Difficulty 3. Intellectual loneliness. It's difficult to find people who share your interests in all areas. Your artist friends find it strange that you talk about thermodynamics. Your scientist colleagues don't understand why you care about semiotics. You always end up being the weird guy in every group. Chapter 5. Other historical polymaths. Let me introduce you to some other names of people we could consider to be polymaths, because Leonardo was not alone. Omar Khayyam, a mathematician who revolutionized algebra, an astronomer who reformed the Persian calendar, making it more precise than the Gregorian calendar, a philosopher, and one of the greatest poets in history. His Rubaiyat is still read today. Hildegard of Bingen, a German nun who was a composer, her music is still recorded today. Writer, philosopher, physician, linguist, she invented her own language, and botanist. She described the female orgasm in a medical treatise 800 years before official science paid attention to it. Ibn Sina Avicenna, physician, philosopher, astronomer, poet. He wrote the Canon of Medicine, which was the main medical textbook in Europe for 600 years. Rabindranath Tagore, poet, Nobel Prize winner, musician, painter, philosopher, educator. He founded a university based on the integration of arts and sciences. He wrote more than 2,000 songs. Do you notice anything? You probably recognize most of these names from one thing: poet, scientist, artist. History has a terrible habit of simplifying polymaths, putting them in boxes after they die. Chapter 6. Recognizing a polymath. So how do you know if you or someone else is truly a polymath? Here are some real indicators based on observed patterns. First, you can't mentally separate your areas of expertise. When you study one thing, you automatically start to see how it connects to 3 other things you already know. Second, do you have difficulty answering "what do you do?" Not because they don't know, but because any simple answer seems incomplete or false. Third, their periods of hyperfocus are intense but cyclical. You can spend 6 months obsessed with marine biology, producing work of extremely high quality, and then switch completely to medieval architecture with the same intensity. Fourth point, you often have insights connecting areas that other people wouldn't connect. And when you explain it, people look at you like, "Dude, how did you even think of that?" Fifth, you collect mastery, not hobbies. It's not about experimenting. When you get into something, you go deep, very deep. But note, this isn't a checklist for you to self-diagnose as special. It's about recognizing a real cognitive pattern that comes with real challenges. Here's something that might mess with your head. Recent studies in neuroscience suggest that the brains of highly creative people with multiple interests have something different. They show less suppression in irrelevant brain areas during focused tasks. In other words, when an average person is solving a math problem, their brain, in quotes, switches off the areas related to music, movement, and emotion. It focuses only on the math. But in polymathic minds, these areas remain somewhat connected, making connections in the background. For years, neuroscientists thought this was a failure, a type of lack of executive control. But now what? They're realizing that perhaps this is precisely what allows for unusual connections, insights that cross disciplines. What science has called a bug for decades may be the most powerful feature of human cognition. So if you recognized yourself here, first, take a deep breath. You're not broken. You're not disorganized, lost, unfocused, or incapable of being an adult. You only have one type of mind that at this specific moment in human history, humanity doesn't know how to properly value, but that's changing. We're starting to realize that the world's biggest problems won't be solved by specialists working in isolated silos. Climate change, for example, requires science and politics and communication and design and ethics. Artificial intelligence requires programming and philosophy and psychology and law. The future belongs to those who can connect. But in the meantime, it's going to be difficult. You'll have to deal with people who don't understand you, who will think you're not serious, who will pressure you to choose a box and stay in it. And the only thing I can tell you is, don't choose. Leonardo died believing he had failed because he hadn't finished everything he started. But today, we look at his notebooks and see one of the greatest intellectual legacies of humanity. Perhaps success isn't about finishing everything. Perhaps it's about connecting everything. So keep connecting. Keep seeing patterns. Keep being weird. Because the world needs minds that refuse to be confined to a single box. But the world doesn't know that yet. If you enjoyed this video, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. I also invite you to comment below. Do you consider yourself a polymath? What are the areas you most enjoy studying? Tell me below. I also invite you to watch the other content on the channel. I'm sure you might find some of the topics covered interesting. Thank you very much for your attention. Until the next video.